Battletech fans, I'm Duncan Fisher. Today, I have one thing on my mind. And no, it's not figuring out how I'm going to explain to the Solaris Gaming Commission why there is security cam footage of someone who looks like me relieving himself against the back entrance of Montenegro's best hotel, the Five Princes. That dark, blurry figure could be any Merrick tourist crazy enough to be staying in that ugly rock pile. Instead, as we sit here at the dawn of a new season on Solaris 7, and I return to the microphone alongside some of the best new talent to surface in the past years, I find myself thinking about the best days I've had both in the arenas and behind the microphone. And speaking of being behind the microphone, I don't believe I've ever publicly shared what first led to my interest in broadcasting for the Solaris games. It all started in what must be only a few years ago, during my mech jock days as a competitor in the Solaris games. Back then, I was one of the hottest mech warriors on the circuit, and I signed on for a 6-mech free-for-all in the Steiner Coliseum. Now, the Coliseum had always been one of my favorite arenas on Solaris 7 during my career, and I had an impressive win percentage in the venue. The Coliseum's unique feature of allowing viewers to watch the matches live added to the excitement. Now, I never really heard the crowds, as my Battletech's external mics were disabled during the matches in order to not hear the announcers as they gave away details about the ongoing match. But for this particular match, something special turned in my favor. About halfway through the match, my Battletech took a punch to the head that rattled every cage I've ever had. Fortunately, I was able to hang on through the bright lights exploding in my vision, and managed to return with a kick from my own mech that swept the legs right out from under my opponent. And that's when I heard it. At first, I thought it was feedback from my damaged neuro helmet, but then the noise began to ebb and flow, as if my helmet was chanting at me. But it wasn't my helmet. It was the crowd, packed tightly in their seats and cheering, "Duncan! Duncan! Duncan!" Once I realized what I was hearing, I figured that the punch to my head must have damaged my audio systems, allowing external sound into my feed. As I stumbled around in my Battletech, trying to find where the last of my opponents were presently exchanging autocannon fire, I heard Jackson Keith's distinctive voice through the din of cheers.
Whoa, Nelly, mech fans, you saw it right here. Hotshot and never give up mech jock Duncan Fisher took out another opponent despite taking what had to be a devastating and disorienting hit to the cockpit.
Now sure, I'd heard Jackson Keith before. I watched the matches even more than I competed in them, but something about his voice caught me. For the rest of the match, I focused not on the competition, but on the commentary that filtered in through the damaged audio system. It was intoxicating, being part of the action and listening to the recounting of it as it happened. My adrenaline surged at the experience, and while I did win the match, along with the generous purse that accompanied an odds-against win, I left the Steiner Coliseum that day with much more than fame, money, and a cockpit speaker that I smashed myself before climbing out of my Griffin. I left the arena that day with a feeling that my mech jock days wouldn't be my best days, even if they did continue for over a decade after that night. Because it was in that match that I realized that when my days of competing were over, that I wanted nothing less than for it to be my voice that rang across the arena, across Solaris 7, and across the inner sphere, announcing the matches, declaring the winners, and lamenting the losers. That day is what I like to think of as the true origin of my second career as the voice of Solaris 7. So when people ask me which of the major arenas across Solaris 7 is my favorite, I answer without hesitation that the Steiner Coliseum and its live cheering crowds is the one closest to this old mech jock's heart. This has been the Duncan Fisher Minute.
The Duncan Fisher Minute is written by David Martin, with additional material by George Ledoux. Produced and performed by George Ledoux and Voices in My Head Productions. Based on characters created by Ferret Baudouin and George Ledoux. Any similarity to persons living or dead is ridiculous.